All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are really going deep on one specific exam, the Oxford Test of English. You might know it as the OTE. We've got a whole load of sources here, official guides, articles, comparisons, and well, our mission is simple. Boil it all down for you. We want to pull out the most important, the really essential nuggets. Think of this as your briefing on the OTE, your shortcut to getting up to speed. So, what is the OTE? Fundamentally, our source is painted as a pretty flexible, completely computer-based English proficiency test. It comes from Oxford University Press, and this is key. It's actually certified by the University of Oxford itself. It tests those core skills, the usual four: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. General English proficiency. And it's aimed at a specific range covering the CEFR scale from A2 through B1 and up to B2. Plus, there's an advanced version too, which pushes higher into B2 and C1 territory.
Exactly. And this is probably where you, the listener, start thinking, okay, why is this relevant to me?
Hmm.
Maybe you're considering taking an English test, right? Could be for university, maybe college admissions, academic stuff.
Hmm.
Or perhaps it's for work, a new job, maybe a promotion, or you just need some kind of recognized proof of your English level for professional reasons. Or maybe it's more personal. You just want to see how far you've come, or you're planning a move abroad, or you want that confidence boost from a certificate. The OAT is one of the options out there, and maybe one you haven't looked into as much as, say, IELTS or TOEFL. And that flexibility the sources keep mentioning, that's really worth digging into.
Yeah, flexibility definitely seems to be the key word here. Okay, so let's get practical. The actual test format. What are the quick facts the sources give us? First up, duration. It's actually pretty concise. Around 2 hours for the whole thing, all four modules. That's, well, quite a bit shorter than some others.
Noticeably shorter.
Delivery is fully computer-based. That's becoming more standard, but the key detail here is it's taken at approved test centers. You can't just do this one from your living room.
And that's an important distinction, the approved center part. It ensures, a consistent, secure environment that's vital for the results to be trusted by universities or employers. Standardization.
Good point. Now, here's where that flexibility really shines through based on the sources. It's modular. This is a big one. You don't have to sit all four parts in one go. You can pick and choose. Just need listening. Take listening. Need reading and writing. You can do just those two. Any combination works.
Which is quite different from the all-or-nothing approach of many other big tests.
Totally. And maybe the most unique point, the thing that really made me double take in the sources, result validity. Once you pass a module and get that score, it's valid for life. It doesn't expire, ever.
That is almost revolutionary in this field. Seriously. Think about it. Most major English tests, their scores expire after 2 years. Poof. That could be a real headache if your plans are longer term or you need something that sticks with you through your career. So it really raises a question, doesn't it? If you need a result that won't just, vanish after 24 months, the OTE suddenly looks very, very appealing.
It really does. Sets it apart significantly. Okay, so let's break down what you actually do in those roughly 2 hours, module by module. What do the sources say about the structure, the timing, the skills being tested? Let's kick off with speaking. This one's the quickest, clocking in around 15 minutes. The structure seems designed to mimic different types of real-world speaking. First, you answer about 8 short, sort of everyday questions. Then you record yourself leaving 2 voice messages based on prompts like you might actually do.
Simulating those practical tasks, yeah.
Then you give a short talk, maybe a minute or so, on a topic they give you. And finally, the system asks you about 6 follow-up questions based on your talk, pushing you to elaborate a bit. Skills-wise, it's looking for appropriate responses, how you organize your thoughts when speaking longer, describing, comparing, contrasting, even speculating and suggesting. Pretty broad.
What I find interesting there is the mix. You got these sort of prepared-ish responses like the talk and the voice messages, but also the spontaneous reaction to the follow-up questions. It tests both planning and thinking on your feet, which, is how real conversation works. It feels quite dynamic.
Good point. It's not just delivering a prepared speech. Okay, next, listening. This module takes about 30 minutes. Sources describe it as mainly multiple choice questions. You'll listen to short recordings, maybe monologues, maybe dialogues. The focus is on understanding the main point, catching specific details, but also, importantly, figuring out the speaker's opinion, their attitude, or why they're saying something.
And remember the adaptive part we mentioned.
Right. Good reminder. The sources confirm both listening and reading are computer adaptive.
Yeah, and that's a crucial feature. It means the test adjusts to you. As you answer, the system gauges your level. Get one right. The next might get a bit harder, struggle with one. The next might ease off slightly.
Right.
It's constantly trying to pinpoint your exact ability level. It's a different feel than a static test where everyone gets the same questions, good or bad.
Hmm.
More tailored.
Tailored, yeah, that's a good word for it. Which leads us nicely into reading. This one's around 35 minutes, and like listening, it's also computer adaptive. Structure-wise, you'll see things like multiple choice questions on short text, maybe signs, emails, notices, then tasks where you match things, like matching people to opinions or paragraphs to headings, and also gap fill exercises in longer text, testing if you understand the flow and connection of ideas. The skills are about getting the main idea, finding details, but also seeing how the text is built, the structure, the cohesion, and sensing the author's purpose or tone.
That focus on structure, cohesion, tone, it goes beyond just understanding the words, doesn't it? It's assessing if you understand how the whole piece works together, the nuances, deeper comprehension.
Definitely seems that way. Okay, last module, writing. This one's the longest at about 45 minutes, and it has two distinct parts. Part one is shorter. You need to write an email based on a situation they give you. The target is 80 to 130 words. Part two is a bit longer. You write either an essay, an article, or maybe a review on a given topic. Here, the word count is 100 to 160 words. The sources are very clear on what skills are assessed here. Can you organize your ideas logically? Can you express them clearly? Are you using the right kind of language and tone for the task? An email needs a different feel than an article, right? And of course, demonstrating good control of grammar, vocabulary, and spelling, the fundamentals.
So when you pull back and look at all four together, you've got emails, articles, giving talks, answering questions on the spot, understanding different viewpoints and conversations, analyzing how texts are put together. What really stands out, connecting it to the bigger picture, is that strong emphasis on practical, real-world communication. It feels like it's designed to check if you can actually use English effectively in everyday academic or professional situations, not just, recite grammar rules.
That practical angle makes a lot of sense for a general proficiency test. Okay,
Same
so
here.
you've done the test, maybe one module, maybe all four. How does the scoring work? What do the results actually tell you?
The OTE uses a point system from 0 up to 140 points for each individual module. And these points are mapped directly onto the CEFR levels. That's the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. You hear about CEFR levels a lot, like A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2.
Yeah, it's the standard way of describing language ability across Europe and increasingly worldwide. Right. So on this 140-point OTE scale, the sources break it down like this. 0 to 50 points is considered below A2. Basically, not quite at the basic user level yet. 51 to 80 points corresponds to CEFR level A2. That's your basic user, someone who can handle simple, routine tasks and direct exchanges of information. Then 81 to 110 points gets you to B1. This is an intermediate or independent user. You can deal with most situations likely to arise whilst traveling, understand familiar topics, describe experiences.
A very common target level for many learners.
Definitely. And then 111 to 140 points puts you at B2. That's upper intermediate. You can grasp the main ideas of complex texts, interact with native speakers fairly fluently and spontaneously, produce detailed texts on a range of subjects, and remember that advanced version, that pushes beyond B2 up into C1, which is proficient user territory using language flexibly for social, academic, and professional purposes.
So it covers that crucial intermediate range really well, A2 to B2, with the option to go higher.
Exactly. Now, getting your results, it varies. For reading and listening, because they're computer marked and adaptive, the score pops up almost immediately after you finish the module. Instant feedback,
That's pretty satisfying.
isn't it? But for speaking and writing, well, those need human examiners to assess them properly. So the sources say allow up to 5 working days to get those scores back. Still reasonably quick, though.
5 days is not bad at all compared to some waiting times.
True. And when you do get your results, you receive a certificate. Crucially, you get a certificate showing your score and CEFR level for each module you complete. If you happen to take all 4 modules, you'll also get an overall CEFR level and an overall score reported.
And that individual module certification, we keep coming back to it, but it's such a key differentiator. It means you get formal recognition for each skill you demonstrate. This really trumps a question for you listening. What if you only need to show, say, a B1 level in reading for a particular job requirement, or maybe B2 speaking for a specific university exchange program? With the OTE, you could potentially just take that one module, get the score you need, receive a certificate for it, and you're done. You don't necessarily have to invest time and money in testing skills you don't need to prove right now.
That targeted approach could be really efficient for a lot of people. So let's broaden the view again. Who exactly is this test aimed at, according to the sources? And why might someone actively choose the OTE over the alternatives? The sources list several main purposes. Academic use is a big one, university or college admissions, but specifically those institutions that recognize the OTE and maybe have set A2, B1, or B2 requirements. Also, placing students into the right level English courses or supporting study abroad applications.
So checking specific institutional requirements is key there.
Absolutely. Then there's professional use. Employers using it to check English levels for hiring or internal promotions, or just individuals needing a credential for their CV. And finally, personal development. Just tracking your own learning progress, maybe preparing to emigrate, or simply wanting an official, recognized certificate without the perhaps heavier commitment of some other exams.
It covers quite a few bases.
It does, and the list of typical test takers reflects that. Secondary students getting ready for higher education, current college or university students, working adults who need English on the job, general learners improving their skills, and even, interestingly, non-native English teachers needing to certify their own proficiency.
Right, that last one makes sense too.
So then, the big question, why pick OTE? What are the main selling points highlighted in the sources? Well, number one is definitely that modularity, take only the parts you need. Number two, flexible scheduling. It's offered pretty much 365 days a year at approved centers, so you're not tied to specific global test dates months in advance.
Much easier to fit into a busy schedule.
Exactly. Number three, the short duration, around 2 hours for the full test, is significantly less time spent under exam conditions. Number four, it's modern, fully computer-based, which many prefer. And number five, it's backed by a globally recognized name. Oxford University Press and the University of Oxford certification lends it significant credibility.
When you put all those benefits together, the modularity, the on-demand scheduling, the shorter time commitment, the lifelong validity we mentioned earlier, it really does carve out a distinct space for itself in the market. If we connect this back to the bigger picture, yes, IELTS and TOEFL are huge names, globally recognized, but their structure often involves that long, single-session exam covering everything on fixed dates with results that expire. The OT seems tailor-made for people whose priorities are different. Maybe you value that flexibility above all else, where you only need one skill certified quickly, or you want a result that lasts. It presents itself as a really convenient, yet still rigorous alternative.
And speaking of those alternatives, you really can't talk about English tests without putting the OT side by side with the big two, IELTS and TOEFL. Our sources provide a really useful comparison table, which helps clarify the OT's unique position. Let's quickly run through the key comparison points. Developer first. OT is Oxford University Press. IELTS is a partnership British Council, IDP, and Cambridge Assessment English. TOEFL is ETS, Educational Testing Service, all major players.
Heavyweights in the assessment world.
Definitely. CFAR levels covered. OT is primarily A2, B2, with the advanced option hitting B to C1. IELTS boasts the widest range from A1 way up to C2. TOEFL tends to focus more on the higher levels needed for academia, say B1 to C1 and above.
So OT is focused on that core intermediate range plus a bit higher.
Precisely. Purpose. OT is positioned for general English academic, work, personal. IELTS is very widely used for study, migration, and work. TOEFL is strongly associated with academic study, particularly for North American universities.
Different primary focuses there.
Yep.
Duration. OT, about 2 hours. IELTS, closer to 2 hours 45 minutes. TOEFL is the longest, typically around 3 hours. That hour difference isn't trivial when you're sitting there.
No, it really isn't. Test fatigue is real.
Format. OT is only computer-based. IELTS offers both computer and paper formats, giving test takers a choice. TOEFL is now primarily computer-based, the IBT. Adaptivity, this is a key difference. OT uses computer adaptive testing for reading and listening. IELTS and TOEFL use linear, fixed-form tests. Everyone gets the same questions in those sections.
So OT potentially offers a more precise measurement in those skills.
That's the idea behind adaptive testing, yes. Retake options. With OT, remember, you can retake just one module if you need to improve a score. With IELTS and TOEFL, generally if you want a better score in one section, you have to retake the entire test.
That's a big difference in terms of cost and effort for retakes.
Huge difference.
Okay.
And certificate validity. OT, no expiration date, valid for life. IELTS and TOEFL, typically valid for only 2 years.
The lifelong validity is probably the OT's single most unique selling point. It really stands out. Finally, cost. Prices vary quite a bit depending on where you are in the world, but the sources generally place OAT in the $100, $150 USD range. IELTS and TOEFL usually cost more, often somewhere between $150 and $250 for IELTS, and maybe $180 to $250 for TOEFL, so OAT tends to be more affordable too.
Okay, laying it out like that really does highlight the OAT-specific advantages. It's not trying to be exactly like IELTS or TOEFL. If you need that C2 level, IELTS covers it. If your target university strongly prefers TOEFL, that might be the route.
Mhm.
But if your needs fall within that A2, B2, C1 range, and especially if factors like modular retakes, lifelong validity, shorter test time, or potentially lower cost are important to you, well, it raises that crucial question again. Are you choosing the test that's most famous? Or are you choosing the test whose features, its structure, validity, cost, convenience actually align best with your specific situation and goals? The OAT clearly offers a compelling case for the latter for many people.
Well said. It's about finding the right tool for the job, isn't it? Not just the most well-known one. Okay, so let's say someone listening has weighed these factors and they're thinking, yes, the OTE sounds like it could be a good fit for me. What's the next step? How should you prepare? The sources give some pretty solid advice here. First things first, and this applies to any standardized test, really. Get deeply familiar with the format. You need to know exactly what to expect. Use the official practice materials from Oxford University Press. They have sample tests, practice activities. Get comfortable with the computer interface, understand the timing for each section, know the different task types inside out, like how the voice message recording works or what the gap fill questions look like.
Knowing the playground before the game starts,
Yeah.
basically.
Exactly. Beyond just the format, though, you obviously need to work on your actual English skills. The sources suggest focusing on areas relevant to the test tasks. For speaking, practice responding to different kinds of prompts. Maybe record yourself speaking for a minute on a topic. Listen back to check fluency and organization. Practice those simulated voice messages. For listening, expose yourself to lots of different English audio. Podcasts like this one, news reports, interviews, lectures, even movies or TV shows. But don't just listen passively. Try to actively summarize the main ideas. Identify who holds what opinion. Figure out the speaker's attitude.
Active listening, yeah. Not just letting it wash over you.
Right. For reading, read widely. Look at different types of texts, short articles, emails, website information, reviews, notices. Practice scanning for specific details, understanding the main points, and also analyzing how the text is structured and what the writer's underlying purpose or tone might be. And for writing, practice those specific task types. Write emails responding to situations, aiming for that 80, 130 word count. Write short essays, articles, or reviews on various topics, keeping the 100 to 160 word limit in mind. Focus on organizing your points clearly, using appropriate language, and proofreading carefully for grammar, vocab, and spelling errors.
And doing it under timed conditions is crucial for the writing, too. Simulating the pressure.
Absolutely. The sources strongly recommend using the official OUP resources, their specific OTE handbooks, practice tests, online materials. They're designed for this exact test. But they also mention supplementary materials can be useful depending on your current level. For instance, if you're aiming for A2, resources like the Oxford Practice Grammar Basic Book, or maybe the English File Elementary series, or even apps like Duolingo or Monly could help build foundational skills.
Building that base.
Yeah. If you're targeting B1, maybe look at the intermediate level grammar and course books, like Oxford Practice Grammar Intermediate or English File Intermediate. Podcasts aimed at learners, like The English We Speak from the BBC, could be great for listening practice. And definitely use the official B1 level OTE practice tests. And for B2 level prep, you'd step up again. Advanced grammar practice, upper intermediate course books. Interestingly, the sources suggest that materials designed for other B2 exams, like Cambridge First, FCE, can also be useful since the underlying skills are similar. Plus, things like BBC's 6-Minute English podcast. And again, hammering those official OTE B2 sample and practice tests is vital.
That makes sense. Building the core skills and then really honing them with test-specific practice. I think the key takeaway for preparation is consistency. Little and often is usually better than cramming. And specifically for the OTE, really embracing that computer-based format is essential. Get comfortable typing your essays against the clock, practice recording your speaking clearly, learn how to navigate the adaptive reading and listening sections effectively. The closer you can simulate the actual test experience during your prep, the more confident and prepared you'll feel on the day.
That's excellent advice. Consistency and format familiarity seem to be the twin pillars of good OTE prep. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today on the Oxford Test of English. Let's just quickly recap the absolute core takeaways we've pulled from the sources. It's a modern, flexible, fully computer-based English test. It covers CEFR levels A2 up to B2 primarily, with an advanced version reaching C1. Its key features are modularity, take only the sections you need, a concise duration, about 2 hours total, and perhaps most uniquely, lifelong result validity. Your scores don't expire.
Hmm. Don't forget the adaptive reading and listening sections, too.
All right, good point. The adaptive nature in 2 modules. It's gaining recognition for academic, professional, and personal use. And it offers some clear advantages: flexibility, convenience, validity when you compare it directly to other major tests like IELTS or TOEFL.
And based on all that, perhaps here's a final thought, maybe a slightly provocative one for you, the listener, to mull over as you consider your options. Given that unique package, the module-by-module certification, the ability to schedule it almost any day, the shorter test time, and especially that unprecedented lifelong validity, could the Oxford Test of English actually be the most efficient, the most targeted, maybe even the most cost-effective way for you to get precisely the English language certification you need, whether it's for right now or for your longer-term goals? Is it maybe the smartest choice for your specific circumstances?
Definitely something worth thinking about. It's not always about the biggest name, but the best fit. That brings us to the end of this deep dive into the Oxford Test of English. We really hope this breakdown, pulling together all that information from the sources, has given you a clear, practical overview and guide.